Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. And we have everyone in attendance. Alderman Piper is attending remotely via phone. If y'all would stand with me and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Miller, would you give our invocation, please?
Thank you. Heavenly Father, once again, we thank you for this day. Thank you, Lord, for all your many different blessings. We ask you now, Heavenly Father, we go forward with the business of this city, that you allow us, Heavenly Father, to do things that first will be pleasing in thy sight. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity you have given each and every one of us to serve in whatever capacity it might be. We just thank you, Lord, for this great city, this great county, this state, and this world that we live in. We thank you right now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Before we approve the agenda, I want to notice that the Mayor's Youth Council members are here. Not all of them. If y'all would stand up very quickly, anybody on the Mayor's Youth Council? So the reason we ask y'all to come, y'all can be seated. We want y'all to see how we do business, and with the hopes that years down the road, some of y'all are sitting up here leading the city. That's the whole purpose of the Mayor's Youth Council, is to develop leadership skills. So y'all watch how we do things and see how you think you could do them better when you get to the right age. Next, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? And I think Alderman Miller had a proposed.
I want to make a amendment to the consent agenda under item I, and just want to add a sentence to the end of that. And that sentence read, just authorized to pay registration and travel expense.
Mayor, I'll second his motion.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is to approve the docket of claims.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting on January 3rd.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, I need a motion on item 7, which is the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, item 8, we're trying to get ahead of it. It's an approval to enter into an agreement with Argo Entertainment, LLC, to produce the Independence Day event with fireworks at the Hernando Civic Center on Tuesday, July 4th of 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Can I have a motion on item 9, which is the personnel docket?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 10 is the donations docket. Is there a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 11 is to proclaim Arbor Day on February 9th, 2023. This is part of what we do for our Tree City USA designation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is item 12, which is to apply for the fiscal year 24 impaired driving grant, and for me to sign it.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, since we have, I still like to call it a new board. Y'all been here a year and a half, but quite a few members who have never been through a financing portion of governing. So Nick Shore with Governmental Consultants And Elizabeth Clark with Butler Snow, we're just going to give a brief overview of how we could finance some things in the future and kind of just give us a little education very quickly.
Hand out just a one-page little document for you to have so that you can look at and if you've got any questions. I'm Elizabeth Clark with Butler Snow, and we have served as the city's bond counsel for a number of years. I think the last new money bond issue we did was back in 2015, and then a refunding in 16. So we're going to keep this short and sweet, but we talked to Chip, and obviously with some of you being new board members, a lot of times when you actually you have a project that comes up and you want to do a project, cities will call and they'll say, hey, we want the money tomorrow and we need it now for this project. And so I always like to make sure boards know in advance, we can get you the money, but there's a legal process that you have to follow. And typically it's about a 3-month process from when you start the bond issue to when you can get the money. So to me, it's always important from a procedural standpoint for the boards to know that when you've got various capital improvement projects, whatever they may be, that it's typically a 3-month process that it takes. And then Nick is just going to kind of go through the financial side of things. His firm serves as municipal advisor to the city, and he will be the one that kind of talks to you about where you are financially as a city, from your assessed value to how much outstanding debt you can issue. And then from the legal side, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, good evening. And so, first, Elizabeth's a little bit better speaker than I am, so I'll try to be as clear as possible, right? Yeah, so like Elizabeth said, I serve as a municipal advisor to numerous cities and counties and utility authorities, school districts across the state. Me and Elizabeth worked on a lot of projects together, and we have done classes at MML, MMS, MAS, the county supervisor shot, a lot of different places about capital projects, right? And so we're not going to go through the 4-hour scenario tonight, right?
Thank you.
A little bit too long, but most important thing is and we cover this a little bit more during budget season and budget timelines, those types of things, right? We talk about capital, we talk about projects. My most important thing always to talk to cities and entities is about the options that are available, right? When we talk about capital, we need to know how we can fund capital, how we can provide for capital from an inflow of resources to match to an outflow of resources in terms of expenditure of funds to build things. And Elizabeth gets a little bit more detail about what you can and can't spend money on, but just overtly, right, when we identify a project, any sort of project, we have essentially 4 basic ways, and I've provided on the page here of how we pay for those: a general obligation bond, a revenue type bond. There's a Mississippi Development Bank Authority, and the statutes allow for a different way to fund projects. And then notes, right, which is, all of these are just loans. They just have different titles, different names that go behind them. And then, how you go about the process, generally a 90-day process, right, from start to finish of once a board or an entity, a city defines the project, to start to get funds in hand, to be able to actually pay for the project. It takes about 90 days to get there, and there's a lot of things that happen in between there. In terms of choosing which structure works best, of how are you going to come up with the resources to pay for a project, to how you're going to sell loans or set loans up and those types of things. But our most important thing is we always want to be early to have a conversation is we don't do debt without a project, right, or a loan, and we don't do a project. We could do a project without a loan, right, but we don't do a big project without a loan. We want to marry those two things together, right? We're not out there to just walk around and borrow money. We need to borrow money for specific reasons, right? And it's just a reminder as projects come up in the future, years and different things come up, we want to identify a way to pay for those projects, and we want to identify them early on, right? We want to plan for them, we want to budget for them. We want to design a long-term forecast to cover those types of things. And so marrying those things together is probably the most crucial part of it all, right? We always have a million things we want to do, and we don't always have the great way to pay for them. But if we plan for them, we build them in the budgets, and we forecast them, we can identify ways to make things a little bit easier. And that's our job, right, is to hopefully make things a little bit easier.
And one of the most common ways that cities in particular do issue debt for various projects is general obligation bonds. And cities are limited to how much debt they can actually issue per state law. Basically, you take your assessed value of the city times 15%, and that gives you the amount of general obligation bonded debt outstanding that you have to issue. So the city has right now the ability
Yeah.
to issue
You have $24 million
$24 million
of,
of general
yeah.
obligation bonded debt. So it just kind of gives you a perspective. You've got, up to 24 million on various projects that fall within the general obligation bond statute that you could potentially do here in your future. And so I think it's good to know, how much, what's your threshold. Obviously, you don't have a $24 million project right now, but it's good to know kind of where you stand, where you are. And that's just based off of the general obligation bonded debt. You've got water and sewer debt that typically is supported by the revenues that are paid back from the water and sewer fund. That's another thing that cities actually do a lot of bond issues for. So it's just good to know kind of where you stand as a city. If you've got projects coming up, obviously, to know that it does take at least a 3-month process. The only shorter process would be like a 5-year note. You might could like narrow that down to 2 months, but just to kind of keep in perspective, if you want your money, if you've got a project that needs a time frame for when you need the money, that's when you would need to start the project.
I've got a quick question. I've had a couple of people ask me, do we have a bond rating or do we need a bond rating? And I know the answer to that because you've coached me through it over the years, but would you run through that very quickly about the need for a rating or a not rating?
Sure, yeah. You've got a couple different ways. The city has 3 general obligation bonds that are outstanding right now. 2 of those are refundings, and one of those was a new money piece that was done, right? And so just through the bond side, right, you've got a couple ways you can sell debt. You can sell debt publicly, or you can sell debt through a limited offering. They both mean the same thing. They're both bid out. They're both seeking a best interest rate. But they mean 2 different things in terms of reporting requirements, right? So if we offered a publicly offered debt where you put together a preliminary official statement and dismiss it around institutions, retail investors, people around the country, you would be subject to an SEC rule 15B C2-12, which says that I'm going to give you information every single year. You have to do that through an audit, but I've got to give you additional information as well.
And I think the city currently does continuing
Yes.
disclosure. So
And
they're under that.
you're under that right there, right? And so a rating on top of that requires a little bit more, right? Entities that are rated, it's generally for cities that sell a lot of debt, frequent and a lot of debt, right? A rating does sell better than non-rated entities, but as long as you have timely audits and you're meeting your other requirements, it fulfills that need pretty well. Ratings become a little bit expensive, and they also become a little bit more of a challenge, right? We've got several entities across the state that were rated that are no longer rated because they didn't issue enough debt to warrant the rating, or they didn't timely file audits in time, and they were withdrawn from the rated agencies as well, And so I think a lot would have to kind of demonstrate to me whether the city would want to actively, instate that and go forward with that. I don't think there's enough there to do that, to incur the cost of a rating and the maintenance of the rating and go through the surveillance periods. It's just a big metric that rating agencies use. It's a really good tool. I don't think it's really in the city's interest to maybe pursue that when there's a lot of other opportunities to still achieve really good levels of debt. Borrowings,
Anybody have any questions? All right, if not, thank you for the
Thank you.
overview.
Absolutely.
Appreciate y'all taking your time for a quick education for us. We will move on to item 15. Austin, would you like to come up and, did I skip 14? I'm sorry, Joe Frank, come up. This is the change order for the Holly Springs Road Waterline Improvement Project. It went just a little over budget. Joe Frank wanted me to sign for the extra money, and I thought I needed y'all's permission to do so, so we brought it before the board.
Okay. This is out on the Holly Springs Road Water Improvement Project. you can see there listed some things that we needed to do extra on the project. The general savings for what we had listed to do on the projects, we actually saved $18,000 by doing it a different way, but we had to have some increases. We had to have an extra connection on the last house on the east end. The county had buried our tap under the asphalt of the road there. And we had some extra depth to do. We had to add a couple of valves. Always need more valves than we usually find out there in the field. Had to move a couple of meters there. Just one of the bigger things was the pressure sewer that we had out there on the road that served Pecan Estates. Was in our way and had to be, that arrangement had to be changed before we could put the water line in. And then, actually, when we applied for these ARPA funds, we had applied for $408,189, and I think our final number, the engineering and everything, is $387,563. So we were actually under what we told the state we would spend on this project.
But we're needing to amend the contract that the board had approved up by $19,436.60 tonight, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe on that? Not, can I have a motion?
So I do have a
Yes, sir.
question. So,
Oh, Doc's speaking first, and then we'll get you, Alderman Piper.
real quick, it's on the document, it says revised contract amount, $364,483 and some change. Up above that, you've got a final number of $387,563. So what will the
That's-
final number be?
The engineering is in the final number, so that would be the final number.
The $387,563.
But we're only amending Cleveland Construction's contract by $19,436.
Got you.
So we're going to be paying Cleveland $364,483.68.
That's correct.
Okay. Alderman Piper, would you like to speak?
Yes, sir. So I know that we submitted this project for the ARPA match, and that we were successful with that, correct?
That is correct.
So will we be getting a match for which amount will we be getting a match for? Will it be the 408? Will it be for the estimate, the actual final, or just the contract with Cleveland?
So we'll be getting 50% of the 364, and they will pay up to 4% of the overall project and engineering fees, which I think that this stays within that number pretty close.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. The motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Okay?
Thank you, Joe. Austin, it's your turn. Now we're on item 15, which is to appeal of the decision of the Planning Commission, PL 1673, Wade Incorporated Fence Variance, and that has been requested by the applicant to be tabled. Do we know what date they're tabling that to?
30 days.
Okay, so it'll be at our 2 meetings from now?
Yes, sir. Second meeting in February.
Make a motion to table, 30 days.
Second. It's a motion and a second to table. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 16, Austin.
Yes, sir. Items 16 and 17 are very closely related applications. The first of which, PL 1690, is the rezoning to be able to create the subdivision in 1691. So the end product of these next two applications will be to subdivide one lot into two. The first application, PL 1690, is the request to rezone a roughly third of an acre from R10 medium-density residential to R6 medium-density residential. It's on the west side of Caffey Street, north of Southern in Section 13, Township 3, Range 8, and the applicant's Ross Smith, owner of the property. The purpose of this request is to subdivide the property into two, and to do that, a 10,000 square foot lot would not be doable. And so the R6 would account for a 6,000 square foot lot, which makes the subdivision possible. The R6 district, there's a description in your staff report of what that means. Generally speaking, it's for single-family residential, which is what the proposal tonight is. The future land use plan of our comprehensive plan lists this as single-family, low-density dependent. Uses complementary to single-family residential are also encouraged. This would be in keeping with the comprehensive plan. I did provide a zoning map in your staff report, and it is worth noting that there are R6 parcels in the vicinity immediately adjacent to this piece. In the discussion piece, I did include the 3 criteria for rezoning, how this proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan, how this existing zoning district is inappropriate or improper, and what changes have occurred in the vicinity that justifies this change. And the applicant response is listed in your staff report. The Planning Commission did hear this at our last meeting and voted to approve it unanimously, 8-0. I did include motions to approve, deny, and/or table in your staff report. And as I mentioned, this is really a 2-part application, the first of which would be the zoning, and the subdivision is next. The applicant's available, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from anyone in the public? If there are no questions, can I have a motion on item 16, which is the rezoning?
Motion to recommend approval of the rezone request by Mr. Ross Smith, owner of the property rezone .33 acres from R10 to R6. The subject property is identified as parcel 308-613-004-001-0900, and is located on the west side of Cathy Street, north of Southern Street in Section 13, Township 3, Range 8, based upon the following finding, 1, 2, 3.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And the companion item, which is PL 1691, which is the final plat for that R6. Can I have a motion on that item? You will.
Make a motion as stated with item 1 through 7.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We will move on to item 18.
This is PL 1694. The request is for final plat approval for Sloan Trescent Phase 1 revision to Lot 1. This is on the north side of Commerce, west of Sloan's Way, immediately adjacent to the I-55 interchange. The applicant's Andy Richardson of R&H Engineering, representing the owner of the property. The request tonight is to create 2 lots on the existing 1 lot. It takes in additional acreage that wasn't considered in the previous application. The 2 lots have a total acreage of 1.78 acres. Lot 1A is .76 and 1B is 1.02. Both the lots have direct access to Commerce Street, and both lots have access to centralized water and sewer. 1A does contain an existing business which is proposed to remain, and 1B is currently vacant. The entrance immediately adjacent to Lot 1B is proposed to be closed, and so both parcels will share the access in front of the existing Dipsticks oil change facility. The Lot 1B would be also having access to Sloan's Way. The property is zoned C2, and the setbacks are listed in your staff report and have been reflected on the plat. There is no designated flood zone on the property, and both lots meet or exceed the requirements for the C2 district. And as I mentioned, the existing entrance on the southern side of Lot B on the eastern side of the parcel is proposed to be eliminated. The Planning Commission heard this at our 10th of January meeting and recommended to approve as written unanimously. And I did include proposed motions with the standard conditions for subdivision approval in the staff report, which contains all the language for required improvements to Commerce and Sloan's if needed. The applicant is available, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from the board on this item? Are there any questions from the public on this item or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve. I need to read this motion, though, don't I?
Yes, sir.
Written down.
I make a motion to grant final approval to Andy Richardson of R&H Engineering, representing the owner of the property, who's requesting final plat approval for Sloan's Resident Phase 1, revision to Lot 1, located north side of Commerce, west side of the Sloan's Way in Section 18, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to the requirements of the city's codes and ordinances, subject to the following standard conditions, 1 through 10.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 19, the McInville Square PUD revision.
This is PL 1695, and the request tonight is to amend the existing Hernando Hills PUD Plan Unit Development District, specifically the McInville Square portion that was approved in August of this year. It's located on the west side of McInville Road, north of Byhalia, and Doug Thornton is representing John Stevenson, and John's actually here tonight representing the application. Generally speaking, this application is to amend the plan text to eliminate the 3-bedroom units proposed in the lofts and change them all to 1 and 2 bedrooms. And what this does is increase the number of lots, 64 units existing to a proposed 72 going forward. And so I'll get into some of the specifics here in just a second, but the board did approve McInville Square portion of the Hernando Hills PUD in August of 2022. And this included 3 mixed-use buildings along McInville Road, and specifically retail on the bottom, the next 2 to 3 floors of loft apartments. And that's what the proposed amendment is tonight, is to change some of the specific language of those loft apartments. The request is to amend in 3 parts, the first of which would be the existing listing of up to 8 lofts is proposed to be deleted. And what that did include previously was 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And so what John is proposing is to eliminate the 3 to a maximum of 24 bedrooms per floor. And this is similar to other cities of what is being proposed in loft apartments, but what this will do is increase the number of units from 64 to 72. And then on the phasing work is to start with the middle building, which is Building B, and he's proposing to switch that to Building A and do the site work and parking lot work all at once, but to start with Building A, which would be immediately adjacent to the bank at Byhalia and McInville Road. And then the proposed maximum residential density shall not exceed 18 units an acre. They wanted to add that to clarify the change of the 64 to 72 units and the bedroom language. And so those 3 pieces are what's requested in the text to be amended. And we did follow the public hearing procedures and post a sign and send out letters. And we do have a prepared motion to approve, deny, or table in your staff report. The Planning Commission did hear this and recommended to approve unanimously at our last meeting. The applicant is available. John's here tonight, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this item? Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the recommended, a motion to recommend approval of the Board of Aldermen of rezoning requested by Doug Thornton, AERC LLC, representing John Stevenson with McInville Square LLC, owner of the property, zoning map amended, preliminary development plan approval of 4.0 acres, revision to the Hernando Hills PUD Plan Unit Development District, McInville Square, located on the west side of McInville Road and north of Byhalia Road, in Section 6, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings, including items 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is item 20, the Joy Health PUD revision.
This is PL 1696, and the request is to amend the existing Joy Health PUD to accommodate a request from Toyota. The subject property is located on the north side of Holly Springs Road, east of McInville, Section 17, Township 3, Range 7. McIntosh Architecture submitted the application as representing the owner of the property. The original Joy Health PUD was rezoned in 2007, which allowed for mixed-use development to include a senior facility in the rear portion of the lot and retail frontages along the Holly Springs Road. And the site is immediately adjacent to the Hernando Fire Station. The proposed amendment would allow a remote service facility to include a detail shop and collision center on roughly 5 acres of the site. And the proposal is to keep this 5 acres immediately adjacent to the fire station and leave the remaining 3 acres on the eastern portion of the site with the existing PUD. So the remaining 3 acres would still be zoned for the healthcare facility and the retail along the frontage. It's my understanding that in 2007 and shortly thereafter, the certificate of need was not met for the existing healthcare facility, which is why no action's been taken on the site. The future land use map designates this as master planned residential medium density, and it does have an accommodation for commercial facilities. And I've included that full description in your staff report, but I'll be glad to answer any questions about that. The applicant did provide responses to the 3 criteria for rezoning. So since we're rezoning, or the request is an amendment to a PUD, this is technically a rezoning since we're doing the text. So we did advertise in the paper, post a sign on the site, and send out letters in line with our public hearing requirements. The preliminary development plan has been included in your staff report. There's a text, a general site plan, and some proposed building elevations. The building elevations did change from the original submittal. They did add a pitched roof on the front, and the Planning Commission recommended to approve this application 7-1, which Commissioner Safley voted against. But the Planning Commission's recommendation was to include a wrought iron fence along the property surrounding the site, and all gaps in the wrought iron fencing be supplemented with landscaping. And with that being said, it was passed 7-1. The proposed development does have access to city water and sanitary sewer services. And after tonight, the next step, if approved, would be a subdivision plat approval and then the full design review that we take on all commercial applications. We did include motions to approve, deny, and table in your staff report. And I did include the previous project text for reference of what was there before and what he's proposing now. And as I mentioned, generally speaking, what this is for is to amend the 5 acres immediately adjacent to the site to allow Toyota to construct a collision and detail center. The applicant's available here tonight, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Did anyone have any questions of Austin?
I do. All right, what's the height of the wrought iron fence that was approved?
6 foot. They said whatever it would take to screen the cars, because the parking in the rear was the main concern with the wrought iron fence.
Yeah.
And so the landscaping to fill in the gaps was the proposal from the Planning Commission.
Well, my concern is because we're dropping this right down in the middle of a residential area, and you're going to be able to see on both sides, you know, from Lee Summit and their backyards with wrought iron fence, you're going to be able to see all the cars. I mean, it's not going to be screened, even though you're going to be able to have trees or whatever there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would think it'd be more private and more, maybe, well, it would definitely be more screened, but more private to be a masonry type fence. And another concern of mine is, you know, since all 8 acres are owned by Toyota, you know, will be owned by Toyota, having the 5 acres close to the fire station and everything's going to be there, I mean, the 3 acres to the east of that, which will be completely like butting up against those coves, those dead-end coves at Lee Summit, if that's ever developed, I mean, that's going to be hard to develop like a strip center or anything unless you came in north-south on it. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the back of that strip center being viewed by those nice $400,000+ homes. So I don't like that idea. And unless you had an 8-foot masonry fence to basically, that's what their backyard will be looking into. And I'm not saying this is not
we don't see this in other areas, but from a security standpoint, I think a wrought iron fence is not really helping much. I mean, you're still going to be able to see right through it. What if, and this is just my proposal, for utilizing the 3 acres, if the 5 acres were utilized on the back side of the property, and maybe the 3 acres be along the front side, and it might be more marketable for a strip center that would go east-west.
The planning commission did bring that up. They were asking about the additional 3 acres, and I'll defer to the applicant here in just a second, but I think their plan was to just sell. But in reality, to your point about the shape of the additional 3 acres, it would have created a need to amend the PUD again, because I don't think it's buildable as it's shown with retail in the frontage on just that small portion.
Right.
So, with the shape of the lot, I do feel that would trigger another PUD amendment, but I'll have to defer to the applicant on their plans for that additional 3.
Mr. Baker, would you like to speak? Sure.
Bill Baker, General Manager at Principal Toyota in Hernando. I mean, our original development there, the folks that were here, the 1.2 acres that's right north of us now, where we put in a retention pond, that was originally going to be parking spots. So we had this conversation with the Planning Commission last week. What I really need is parking spaces. I currently have 408 parking spaces where we're at. Those 408 parking spots, they asked me to break that down for them. Toyota's planning volume for new Toyotas is approximately 125 new cars. Not a history of the car business, but 125 new cars. That means I need 220 in stock. Our planning volume for pre-owned is 150. And then you have 50 to 60 customers coming in every day to get their car serviced, plus I currently employ 47 employees. You add all that up, that's a little over 500 parking spots if we were at current volume. Economically, yes, we would love to see that number. Since we've been open, our best month's been 198 pre-owned or 198 total in July of 2022. So the big thing for us was for future growth was to buy a piece of property and try to develop that property over the next 24 to 36 months. It's not something that I'm looking to do right now. The reason is economically we don't know exactly. Right now I've got 10 new Toyotas on the ground and 150 pre-owned cars in stock. Toyota for the year 2022 says we're probably not going to reach anywhere near a volume where we'll have more than 50 to 60 new cars on the ground for 2023. The big thing was our contingency on the purchase of the property was based on getting an automotive approval, and that's why we came to the Planning Commission. I think most of you know that I'll pretty much, when we built the Toyota store, we're going to do what we have to do to make you guys happy with a building that looks professional and looks presentable to you guys. And it also has to meet Toyota's standards. You know, it's not like we're going to build a Craigens or whatever else is right down the street that has no fencing or no nothing. We're going to put something in there that looks very professional, that protects the value of the customer's home. I don't have any future for that additional 3 acres. That's why we didn't ask for the change of venue or change of the PUD there. And I'll be glad to answer any question that you might have. The big thing is I want to be partners with the city. The folks that know me and been here for a while know that we're here to support the city of Hernando with a lot of different things. Driver's ed car for the high school and a lot of other things that we've donated because business is good. And that's part of being partnered with you guys. So.
Well, my biggest thing is just, okay.
Go ahead, Alderman Piper.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I agree with you. I think that, since Principal Toyota's come into Hernando, even prior to, finishing out the building, y'all have been a great corporate partner for the city, and y'all have certainly, put your money where your mouth is in terms of just, sponsoring things and definitely been very supportive from that standpoint. And that definitely deserves a thank you, because that is something that you don't necessarily have to do, but it does show that you are committed to the community. So we certainly appreciate that for sure. So from what you were saying, this is something that is, you said 24 to 36 months out, most likely, but it kind of depends on a lot of economic conditions and production conditions and some other things, manufacturing conditions, it sounds like.
Yes, sir. We also, talking to my owners and partners back in Texas, there's a existing home on that piece of property now, and I've spoken to Beth about it. People starting a fire in the living room. Our ideal plan would be to get that removed over the next, as quick as we possibly can, and get it torn down so we don't have a nuisance there with somebody trying to stay in it. And then, like I say, once we see the growth that we think we're going to have in Hernando, then we'll come back and give you some full colored rendered drawings and a lot of stuff that costs a lot of money to develop with an architectural firm, and bring you guys something that I think you would be 100% happy with.
And then I had a question for Austin, or I don't know who would be the best person to answer this question, but I'm trying to look at these tiny numbers on here. Is the building height 20 feet?
I believe that's correct. I want to say at the peak, on the front two peaks, is 22 feet.
Top of parapet's
24, yeah.
Top of parapet's 24.
Okay. And then what is the how much frontage is there in front of the building until you get to the actual structure, from the road to the structure? Do we know that number? It's not crucial, but I'm just wondering from a...
No, there's approximately, the way the architect drew it, there's 248 additional parking spots complete. Being I'm not going to have a customer facing there, the cars that would be parked out front on a daily basis would be our employees, associates' cars. We would like to move 220 of those parking spaces to the back. The Make Ready Center is to PDI new cars, to do the window tint, to do the things that we do to prepare the new cars. As I told the Planning Commission last week, we won't be selling cars there. Those cars would just simply be staged there so I can move them up to the Toyota store.
Okay, thank you.
And Austin said roughly 200 feet would be the setback of the building from the street.
Okay, thanks.
What other questions do y'all have?
My main concern of all of it, which I don't have a problem with what you're wanting to house in the building, as long as it fits the area. Looking at the bricks and stuff, everything's like light gray, dark gray, things like that. I mean, I just want it to look like it fits in the neighborhood, to where it's not going to stand out outside of the houses around it. I mean, I just want it to flow either way, going east or west on Holly Springs, and it not look like it's not supposed to be there, because I know what you're needing from, space and all that, because you and I have talked. I just want to be assured that we are protecting the folks that the majority of their life savings are in their homes all the way around this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to be protected. I want the lighting to be, not invasive in their homes and things like that. Those are details that are important to me, and they're important to all of my residents over there.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And just the look of, cars everywhere. I mean, if it's going to be a collision center, where are these wrecked cars going to be? They're going to be in the back, they're going to be in the side, or they're going to be camouflaged back behind gates and fencing. That's what we want. And you did mention Craigan's. Craigan's is in the county, and I'm not real thrilled the way that looks either.
Right.
At all. It's an eyesore. There's parked cars in the field in front, and there's, all the cars they're working on up front on the gravel drive. That's something I can't control. It's not in the city.
Right.
But I don't want even a takeoff from that, and I know you're not going to do that. I know that. But I don't have any guarantees.
I can't give you a guarantee there won't be a body shop there. The EPA regulations on a body shop is very, very, very strict, getting stricter, by the way. So we put that down there because Toyota requested for growth potential that we put possible body shop. I can assure you, we won't be building a body shop. We won't. It will be a reconditioning center. They will service some of the used cars there. Ideally, our used car technicians would be officed out of there, and that's where they would service and prepare those so we can leave the main shop at Toyota open for our customers. Right now, what we're running into already is I have a total of 16 stalls, and 4 of those stalls currently in our shop are being used for pre-owned, to service pre-owned cars as they come in and we service them. So we would like to move that and have that volume so customers can bring their car in and get their oil changed quicker and all the other things that would make it easier for the customer to get in and out.
Just for the record, I'm very supportive of what you planning on doing. But for the record, and that's to the board and also you, Cragen is not before us tonight. And I respectfully ask that we not bring them back up because they're not here to defend nothing that they're doing, and throwing and talking about their business is not professional,
Yes, sir.
in my opinion.
I apologize.
But I say I support the project, but I don't think we should bring it up under business that's outside the city, that's not before this board.
Okay, I apologize.
Anything else? Any other questions from the board? Is there anyone else here to speak on this topic? Alderman Harris, were you about to say something?
Yeah, Beth, it sounds like you're for the project with the exception of just the visual,
The aesthetics of it.
being able to line of sight of being able to see wrecked cars, parked cars, whatever car on the property. So I'm not 100% sold on a mortar type fence, so I guess my question is there any other kind of fence that would look good, that would accomplish what we need to accomplish from a visibility standpoint? Does anybody know of anything?
I mean, I did bring it up to the Planning Commission last week. The encampment for our existing trash dumpsters is concrete block with a wrought iron and a nice metal gate, so to speak. They didn't bring up a concrete block or a cement wall aesthetically. I don't know. I mean, I would want it to feel like it fit in better with the neighborhood, which would be a wrought iron type fence with a screening or a batting that goes on the inside that blocks those would look more in tune to what goes on in the neighborhood than a concrete wall or a concrete block wall.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Stevenson?
Just as a John Stevenson, as a developer, one thing I've used in the past and have seen it used very effectively is a berm, earthen berm that you can then top either with a fence or landscape screening, and that completely blocks out anything. I mean, it looks like a hillside, and then you landscape on top of it, and you can even put fencing behind it. And you'll know, I have an office building in Olive Branch, and Kroger did that behind us, and my building faces loading docks, and you would never know it's there.
One example of that I've just, when you were talking about that, if y'all can picture the retirement center and Grove Park on Byhalia Road, that's got an earthen berm, and you really don't see much on the other side of it. You don't see cars, you barely see the houses. So that might be a good compromise. I don't know what the cost is on that, and Mr. Baker, that's,
I would think it would be less.
Earth berm is going to be much cheaper than a wrought iron fence with screening or a concrete block wall.
Austin, from a design standard and to meet our standards with the city, how would that work out? I'm sure there'd be landscaping with the berm, but.
There would. There's a couple different ways in the earthen berm. The view is what everyone's concerned about. So for the earthen berm, depends on the height, and it can be used in combination with a fence or with landscaping, but the intent would be to just completely screen from view. So if you wanted something in your motion to propose, just to say, a proposal to completely screen the view of cars in line with the design regulations, because we have several different ways they could do it. it might be a little tough to design tonight, but the
Right.
landscape berm and the fence or the landscaping might help.
That's my biggest concern is screening and it just fitting into the area. I mean, it's just like when I talked to you. And thank you for going back to your architect and adding a pitch to the roof on the front of it, so the front elevation looks a little bit more, softened into the area. Because, I mean, I'm not opposed to what you're trying to do. I just want it to be screened, I want the residents protected, and I want it to look like it fits there.
I can tell you, when we built the existing store, the part that faces Mackinville Road, the reason the elevation changed so deeply is because they didn't really want to see those cars from the road. So if you drive by now, there's a pretty good 5 to 6 foot drop off, other than at the end of Holly Springs Road, that blocks it. If a car's headlights are on, or if you're driving down Mackinville, you actually have to pull in to actually see the car or look down off that hill. Like I say, the earth or a mound, would that give me the amount of security that I need to protect cars that are parked there? The lighting, it was within code. Lights shine straight down. They don't spread out like they used to. Like I say, I don't. Whether we go earthen berm or a fence of some sort, we can sure figure that out when we get to the final approval.
Are there any other questions or concerns? If not, could I have a motion on the item?
Motion to approve. Motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of a rezoning requested by McIntosh Architecture, representing the owner of the property, for a zoning map amendment, preliminary development plan approval, revision to the Joy Health PUD, request from Toyota located on the north side of Holly Springs Road, east of Mackinville Road, in Section 17, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings, 1 through 3, and adding a proposal to completely screen for cars by adding an earthen berm or something comparable.
There you go.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Item 21, can I have a motion on the utility adjustments? So motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. It's a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.